Armando Baker here.
It's Luke May.
This is Tyler Hansbrough.
University of North Carolina.
Here's North Carolina.
I just want to shout out my boy JBEAR_YT.
JBEAR_YT.
It's Carolina family, baby.
Go Heels.
Go Heels.
What's up, boys? Welcome back to another video. Today, I am doing the UNC basketball deep dive for the 2021-2022 season. I did a football one of these. If you haven't seen it, go check it out. Gotta be honest, it looks really stupid right now. But anyways, basketball, I'm not even gonna say. I was gonna say I was more confident in this basketball one, but honestly, who knows anymore? But obviously, UNC basketball is more established, so I'm hoping we'll have a great season. Let's get right into it. If you guys don't know what I'm talking about here, deep dive, I'm gonna go position by position and just talk about the overall team and how I think they'll do this year. So let's get right into it. Starting out here, we have the key departures and additions. As you can see under the key departures category, we have Garrison Brooks, preseason ACC Player of the Year last year. So that is a unfortunate big loss. He's now at Mississippi State as a grad transfer. Walker Kessler, former 5-star recruit. Now he is a sophomore playing at Auburn, which is also unfortunate. And of course, Day'Ron Sharpe, who was a first-round NBA draft pick. And now it's on the Brooklyn Nets, where he could get a championship. Who knows? So those are the key departures for this team. We did also have Sterling Manley, who I could have added on this list, and Andrew Platek. But those are like the real big subtractions there. And the key additions, we have Dawson Garcia, who is a power forward / center, who is transferring from Marquette. He will be a sophomore. He was a true freshman last year, so he's a sophomore for the Heels. Does have NBA aspirations. Not sure if that'll be met after this year or how long he'll stay, but we'll figure that out. Brady Manick is a graduate transfer from the Oklahoma Sooners. He was a 4-year player there, averaged about 15 a game, I think, throughout his career, or 12 a game, something like that. He's a sharpshooting big. I have a video on him as well. I actually have a video on like all these guys, but anyways, you know what I'm saying. Justin McCoy is the third transfer, and he's a guy who people didn't have many high hopes for. He's a guy who was lower ranked, didn't play much when he was at Virginia, but he transferred from Virginia. He's now a junior, and he's playing for the Tar Heels this season, and he might be a sleeper, but we'll get into that when it comes to the small forwards. And DeMarco Dunn and Dontre Styles are the freshmen. DeMarco Dunn is a shooting guard. He's kind of like a 3-level scorer type player, and Dontre Styles is a small forward who I think has a lot of upside, but we'll get into that later. So let's get on to the first position, which is point guard, of course. As you can see on the screen, I have some overall ratings as well with the players, and it's kind of like a NBA 2K card type thing. Like I did with the football players, pretty much exactly. But there's only 15 players in this roster, so it's much easier. And first off, starting point guard, obviously I think will be Caleb Love here. I have him at 88 overall. Didn't have the greatest freshman season, but he did show flashes of the NBA talent we know he all has. So I think he does take a step up this year. If he can shoot just a little bit higher from 3 and lower the turnovers, he'll be just fine. He'll be a great player. RJ Davis is a guy who some people think he might be the starting 2 guard. I'm not so sure about that. I think he could be. That's definitely an option. But I think RJ Davis, if he's off the bench as like a 6th or 7th man behind Caleb Love, I mean that's a guy we're talking about, like 6th man of the year in the ACC type guy. RJ Davis is gonna be really good this year. He can shoot. Didn't exactly shoot the best percentages last year, but we know he can shoot. And you know I think I see more of the true point guard personally. And then Creighton Labo is a preferred walk-on. I think his dad Jeff Lebo is on the team as a coach now, and Creighton, he was on the team last year. But honestly, I think Creighton Labo, if it had to come down to it, is the walk-on I would trust the most to go in and like play. Not that they would necessarily need to, but you guys know what I'm saying. But yep, those are the 3 point guards I think will be on this team. Now let's move on to the shooting guards. Here we have Kerwin Walton as the starting shooting guard, which is what I do expect to happen. I've him at 81 overall. He is a guy who wasn't exactly the most highly touted player coming out of high school, although he was still like a really good basketball player out of high school, obviously, to be going to the University of North Carolina. But he was the lowest ranked recruit, came out and just really balled out and outperformed most other freshmen on the team last year. So I was really impressed with Kerwin. He's knockdown shooter, probably best shooter on the team. Debatably, probably like Brady Manick this year, I guess. So yeah, true shooter. But also in the late night and HD thing, that event, he did show some hops, and he showed he's not just a shooter. So we'll see how he performs this year. I think he'll be really good. Honestly, I think he's an NBA type prospect. If he can get better on the defensive end, that's exactly what the NBA is looking for. Wings who can shoot the ball and play defense. I mean, so I think Kerwin is really good. Backup shooting guard, I have Anthony Harris. He's an energy guy, energy defensive mind off the bench, who I think can be really impactful. He can really attack the rim and play good there. Doesn't shoot great from 3-point range, but that is just fine. He'll be a guy we can rely on to get energy when the team is lacking that. And then true freshman DeMarco Dunn is who I have at shooting guard 3. But honestly, you could put Puff Johnson here. I wouldn't argue it. The only reason I have DeMarco Dunn here at shooting guard 3 is because he's going to be Puff at least is probably not going to be playing because of an injury, at least right away in the season. And he didn't play much last year, so we don't really have a large sample size. DeMarco Dunn was in like the 60 range of top recruits in the nation in the 2021 class. I think he could be a really good player. He's a pure scorer. He can do that, I believe, at the college level. If he takes some time to develop, he can be a really good player. And, of course, Puff Johnson, younger brother of Cam Johnson, who's currently a really good player on the Phoenix Suns, almost won the NBA title last year. I think he'll be at shooting guard 4, but honestly, he could rise up as high as to backup shooting guard by the end of this year. I think he's that talented. We just haven't been able to see it because of injuries and that kind of stuff. Now moving on to the small forward position. I have Leaky Black at small forward. Here's why. I know a lot of Carolina fans haven't been happy with the way that Leaky Black is playing, and I understand that. I really do. Leaky is a defensive-minded player, but he can play make as well. If someone is just having a bad night and can't just turn the ball over every single time or something, Leaky Black is a guy who can really pass the ball and can do well on the defensive end and do what you want outside of scoring, honestly. I mean, Leaky, he's just not that the scorer that people want to be, but we don't really need that this year. We have scorers on this team. Leaky can come in and play defense and play make in that starting lineup, and I think do really well. I think he will barely get the nod over Justin McCoy for that starting job, although I could see Justin McCoy starting, don't get me wrong. But I think that just the senior leadership that Leaky brings and just the experience will give him that nod. So I gave him an 80 overall. If he could score, it'd be even higher than that, but that's just based off defensive playmaking for Leaky. At small forward number 2, we have Justin McCoy. I like Justin McCoy. He's one of those guys who was probably one of the most underrated transfer signings, honestly, in the ACC as a whole. I mean, Justin McCoy is a guy who barely touched the floor, it seemed like, as a Virginia Cavalier. And now he's at the point where he can possibly get a starting role at the University of North Carolina at the small forward position. Apparently his scoring is much better, much improved from what people thought it was. And he's another guy who played in Tony Bennett's system where defense is key. So he knows how to play defense. And apparently he can score now. So I think he can be a really good player. And this is where Justin McCoy belonged all along. At small forward 3, we have Dontrez Styles, true freshman, out of Kingston, North Carolina. Dontrez is a kind of a slasher type player. Although he can shoot a mid-range jumper here and there. He had a good game in the late night in HD, which is, again, a small sample size. But I was really impressed with his game there in the late night showing. So I think he can be also a very high upside guy during his time in Carolina. And then we have 2 walk-ons, non-scholarship players, and Ryan McAdoo, and Dewey Ferris. I gave them both 66 overall grades at small forward 4 and 5. Anyways, on to power forward. Power forward is, in my opinion, the position I don't know who's going to start at the most, I guess. Because I think point guard and center are obviously solidified with Armando and Caleb Love. I think Kerwin's earned that starting shooting guard spot. I think Leakey's experience will get him that starting small forward role, at least at first. But power forward, it really is up in the air. We have Brady Manick and Dawson Garcia, who I gave identical grades. Now, I'd say Dawson Garcia does have the higher ceiling over Brady Manick, but I think if we're playing right now, I think Brady would get that starting nod just barely because of his experience in the NCAA tournament and just as a great basketball player over in the Big 12. He can shoot the ball. We've seen that at Oklahoma for the past 4 years, and I think he can do it really well here in his one and only season at North Carolina. So I gave them both 84 grades. Dawson Garcia is a transfer from Marquette who did a little bit of everything, and as you'll see in a minute, I actually have him at center as well, just because there's a reason, which we'll get to. But yeah, I think this is how the power forwards will shake out right here. And on to center, we have Armando Bacot, of course, at starting center with a 94 overall grade. He's going to be probably the best center, maybe, in the ACC. Because I guess you could qualify Paolo Banchero at Duke as a power forward. And I have Dawson Garcia here at center as well. I did move him down to an 82 because I do see him as more of a power forward type player. But someone's going to have to play backup center minutes because Armando, as good as he is, he can't play every single minute of every single game. Someone's going to have to come in and play that position a little bit to give Armando some rest. And I think that does have to be Dawson Garcia, who I think can play the role. I mean, he's taller than Armando, I think. I think he's like an inch taller. His game isn't exactly, it's honestly very unlike Armando's, but I think he can do it well for this team in the probably small, well, honestly, might be a decent amount of time that he's at the backup center position. But yeah, that's how the center role looks out. I think it's going to be really good for this team. And finally, the last category I have is going to be the JBEAR 2. I think these are going to be two players who could potentially rise their stocks as high as probably backup positions on this Roles team, and in the future be really great players for the Tar Heels. So over here we have Puff Johnson and Dontrez Styles. Puff Johnson is a guy who had the pedigree coming out of college. He's a top 50 player. We haven't seen him much of at all because of his injuries, and we know he has talent. Some people think he's more talented than his brother Cam, which if he is, I mean, that's fantastic. I find that hard to believe. But Puff is so talented, he could play backup shooting guard as early as this year if he comes in and is able to show what he can do. And same thing with Dontrez. I think with small forward, there's no clear and obvious stud who's going to play that position. So I think if he develops and does right in that system, he's going to do really well. So guys, that's it for today's video. Please like, subscribe, turn on post notifications, do all that YouTube stuff, and I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.